Nelly, you are in the opposition of knowing quite well the two most prominent, the past 2 decades Warriors coaches. Do they share any similarities, or are they just diametrically different people?
Oh man, never really thought of that. I mean, I love both of them. I love playing for Nelly, even though Nelly could be tough to play for. Uh, Bluntly honest, and maybe sometimes too much so. But I think they're both very creative in their offenses, and they kind they make people kind of match up to them in that way. But I think the way they go about it is probably a little bit different. Because Nelly would, I mean, well, come to think of it, Steve can blow a gasket too with the best of them. But Nelly, boy, Nelly would, man, alive. He would get on you, and it was more insulting just because that's the way it was back then. Just the way coaching was a little bit. I mean, it's a lot nicer now, right? You got to put on your white gloves and ask, please, and can you let me take this for you? And oh gosh, I don't want to insult you. Back then, insulting was like, sorry, just deal with it, get over it, and get your ass back on the court and try to help us win a basketball game. But yeah, I don't know if there's that much, like if they're that different. But I'd never really thought of them as being like similar either. Maybe because I've never thought of it, and I'm obviously a lot closer to Steve than I am Coach Nelson. But I mean, I loved playing for him too. I mean, he gave my shot. He let me play the style of basketball that I like to play, and he utilized me in a way that I could go out there and be successful. And I mean, there was some brutality there as well. I mean, he told me one time when I wasn't playing well, and it was my fault. I didn't work hard during the off season, and I came in not great shape. And he sat down one time and he goes, "Hey, and then I had like three and a half years left, I want to say, on a 5-year deal." And he goes, "Look, I'm going to do us both a favor." He goes, "Why don't I just take the contract and rip it up, and then you can do what you want to do, and we can do what we want to do." And I looked at him, I go, that's pretty generous, but being as I have 3.5 years left, I'm going to have to say no to that. I'm going to have to say no, but I do appreciate the offer. So, but he was like, and then when they cut me, he actually came down, he walked down to my house and let me know in person. Like, he didn't call me. He walked down and knocked on my door and just said, "Hey, we're going a different direction. We're going to have to let you go." And I just said, "I appreciate, thanks for coming down." I hate when guys like call or, well, I guess they wouldn't have Zoomed you back then, but it was just like, he was just one of those guys that he was going to tell you the truth as he saw it. And sometimes he didn't need to go that far into the truth. I didn't think, like, sometimes I think he did some things to be hurtful. But that's just the way he was. And, but I did love playing for him. I really did. I just thought that style of play and those guys that I got a chance to play with, 3 Hall of Famers, Timmy Hardaway, Mitch Richmond, Chris Mullin. Yeah, I mean, I got really, really, really fortunate to play for him and that team and that style. But as far as coaches are concerned, yeah, I mean, just I guess different in that I don't know. Maybe he does. God, now that I'm thinking about it, because I'm thinking Nelly should take losses so hard. Like, he'd be great to talk to when they won. Like, he just loved, like, "Hey, Tommy, let's go out and play some shuffleboard," or, just something like that. Let's go. And then when he loses, you'd get in the elevator, and this hat would literally be down like this.
Wow.
Then you go, "Hey, coach." I was like, damn. And I mean, I kind of get it now, seeing it through Steve, because Steve, he gets a little, sometimes, like, I think we've gone over this, losses kind of affect him. So sometimes if it's a devastating loss, like, he wears it for a while. And players are much different than coaches too. Players lose, it's like, okay, we'll go get them next day. It's cool. Yeah. Coaches wear it harder than players do, to be honest with you. And then maybe GMs even wear it harder because they can't do anything about it. They just got to sit there and watch the the whole
Yeah.
thing. But it's funny you bring that up because now that I look about it, I mean, I think about it a little bit. Like personality wise, I think they're different. But when I look at them, like the way they wear their emotions on the sleeve, the way the highs and the lows and all that kind of stuff, and kind of the offensive creativity that I think they both really have, and both really really good coaches, like top tier coaches. Maybe they are more similar coaching than I really ever gave it a thought. I'm like thinking myself through it and thinking, well, yeah, maybe they are. Maybe they are.
Perhaps. I mean, Steve never kicked me out of his house like Don Nelson did once when when we were smoking weed. But I saw the whole
That's
thing
so good.
flip where
Yeah,
he
but you
was.
never smoked weed with Steve either, and probably wouldn't.
I think the difference is that Steve has made me feel like I visited his house, though I never have.
Yeah.
Don Nelson actually invited me over and then made me feel supremely unwelcome. And I'm not sure how to
That
unpack
sounds like
whatever,
Nelly, though. That sounds
you
exactly
know.
like something Nelly would do. Absolutely.
Oh my God. That was, that was an experience. I don't know if I enjoyed it as it happened, but it made for a good story. And so I'm
Oh
glad
yeah.
that it
Were you
happened.
over in Hawaii?
Yes. I was
Were
with
you
my
in Were you in
wife.
that room that had the painting with Woody Harrelson and Owen Wilson?
Yeah. 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 And
Incredible room.
Nelly had his feet up on the pool table and he was clipping his fingernails. I mean, his toenails on the table, doing bong rips
Yeah,
with
that
this
sounds like
guy who
Nelly.
was this very nice guy who I think was from India talking about real estate in Watsonville that they were targeting. And it
Yeah.
felt a little bit like that scene in Boogie Nights where the firecrackers are going off and
Yes,
they're
yes,
playing
yes.
Jesse's girl in the background. And I,
That's
I,
hilarious.
I didn't. I wrote an article about it. I didn't include why the mood kind of turned, but it was because. And again, I hope I just want to speak honestly about these things. And
Yeah.
I think the statute of limitations again. He's very high. I'm very high. I
Yep.
know Tim Kawakami, the great Tim Kawakami, my boss at the
Yep.
time, and Nelly starts complaining about some reporting on Tim,
Yep.
and says Tim Kamikaze, and then goes, "You're not going to write about that, are you?" That like because he's worried about racial sensitivities, and I
Yeah.
was like, "That's
Yeah.
not what I'm there to do."
Yeah.
But he doesn't know me, and we're both high, and I can't then reassure
Like a
him that
sitcom.
yes. And if only I could have been honest with him and said, look, Nelly, I am not going to include that in the article. However, about 5 or 6 years from now, I will mention it on a podcast and it won't be that big a deal. And it's okay. So we can all relax here. But I don't know. My
Oh, that's
favorite memory of him,
hilarious.
my favorite memory of him is something that I didn't experience. It was something you experienced, but I was listening live on the radio, which is when he was calling in from I think a restaurant in Indianapolis saying he was drinking scotch and maybe having a steak or something. And it's harder than hell to trade that guy, he said about Steven Jackson. I was just listening live on the radio with you and the great Ralph Barbieri, if memory
Yeah. Yeah.
serves. I mean, this might be like the strong backup white guy center on the Bulls where I just made it up and it never happened. But that memory is in me, and it was just that was him. It was a bluntness that you do not get elsewhere in the NBA.
Yeah, no, I remember. I want to say it was Philly. He was in Philly because he used to call from bars. We used to talk to him once a week as a coach's show and everything. Call from bars, and he calls, and he would always say to Ralph, "You dumb son of a bitch." Like that was his thing. That was his thing for Ralph. He'd drop him on me too. I mean, he wasn't like he's non-discrimination. He's like, I'll drop it on anybody. But I remember him sitting at the bar, and he said, "Yeah." I go, "What are you doing, Coach?" He goes, "Just sitting here, having a scotch." He goes, "Pretty empty." There's a girl sitting over there. He goes, "I think she's eyeballing me because I think she might want a piece of me." I'm like, what? What are you talking about? What are
Oh,
you talking about?